Greek Ghanaians pronounce he, him, and I am a non-clinical case manager with
My calculations are correct. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious...
On this blessed Friday, let us give thanks.
So, another Friday is upon us.
WTF, where's the Friday? I'm Rob Birdsey. Nice to meet you all once again. Man, it's like winter outside overnight. Yesterday it started off with a nice, beautiful day and then turned into a cold afternoon, into a cloudy one, and then rain, hail, rain, snow, snow, snow. So yeah, we got winter. It's here. It's coming. Today I have a really good guest. I think this is going to be great for us. Ken Hulse is coming in. You can catch us. He's got a bit of a life story. You can catch us on YouTube, and that's at Widowed, Trio, and Freedom. So that's Widowed, I'm a widowed father. Trio, I have 2 little boys, and they're actually in the hall out there. I'll probably bring them in soon. Freedom. We're working for freedom. So if you can go over there and check it out and like, share, and subscribe and all that jazz, I would appreciate it. It'd be kind of good. And in return, I'll bring you some good subjects and topics and life, and we'll talk about how we can get through it, and maybe I can help you in one way or another. Ken, welcome to the show.
Rob, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm honored by the opportunity and grateful for you and your time, and for Ryan, good friend of mine here at the studio, for letting me have this kind of platform and just talking today about what you just said, doing hard things, dealing with things in life, and sharing a part of my story. So I appreciate the time and the opportunity. So thank you.
No, I appreciate you coming in, Ken. I when I first heard about it and shout out to Ryan Steinerkart, he's amazing. He's such a great dude.
He is.
I couldn't put this together without this guy's help, and he literally has done a lot for me. So thank you, Ryan. When I first heard about your story, it definitely touched some heartstrings for me, because I've gone through the life of cancer, which you have just gone through. And so what cancer have you? What are you going through? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, no, that's a great place to start. And as you said, it's something that I realized didn't know about personally. You hear about cancer, and there's so much out there. We're in October, Cancer Awareness Month. Great focus on breast cancer. It's at the forefront. It's something that is out there, is real, affected your life, affects many people we know, but the overarching challenge of cancer. So what a month to talk about it in and have this kind of a conversation. I think that's incredible to bring up and heighten that awareness for everyone. But, we all know someone who has cancer.
Yep.
We all know someone in our lives, whether a family member, a friend, an associate, someone out there that we know is affected by cancer. And until it becomes real, you sit in a room with a loved one or yourself, and you're sitting across a desk or in a chair from a doctor, and they say, "We found a tumor." Or "We have seen a mass on a scan." Then it becomes different and real. And then you inherit and become a part of this larger family. And it's pretty remarkable. I mean, so there's a bond, there's connections, there's a lot that happens in your life once you hear those words, "You have cancer." And I know for me, that changed, back early in the spring for me when I heard those words. It changed my life. And there's a lot of other things that have come into play there, but being a part now of this family, the larger cancer fighting, cancer surviving, you know, cancer grinding kind of person, and talking to you and hearing your story, there's a bond and a connection already.
Yeah.
I can talk to people on the street, and I can see people around, and you just have that instant bond and connection. So I think it's an incredible topic to talk about that today and wherever else we go. But, it is a huge part of life now. It's been a part of literally every day for me, going through active radiation treatments and doing different things, and dealing with it as part of life and as life. So, looking forward to the topic and just what we talk about. So.
Yeah. What cancer did you have?
Yeah. So what I have is a very rare type of bone cancer. It's called a chordoma. Now, diagnosis-wise and out there in the world, when you look at numbers, it's about a 1 in 1 million diagnosis that is given. A chordoma comes from, there's nodules when an infant is developing inside the mother's womb, inside the body. And these little nodules are, they're free radicals. They kind of float around. Over time, they either absorb into the body, they fuse into the system, but there are times where they remain free radicals, and they just are there as particulates and particles and small things. I'm not a doctor, so don't quote me on everything. But what I've learned through the hard knocks is this: when they're there, and they are susceptible to being receivers, and can become harbingers, and they can become places where, bad tissues and bad things start to build up. So in my case, that happened. With a chordoma, normally it's a spinal bone cancer.
Wow.
So what happens there is it can manifest itself along the track of your spinal cord. There's a number, more than around a third of those diagnoses come into the mid-spine, the lumbar area. Another third or more come into the sacrum, the tailbone area. And then the smallest percentage of those is in the brain stem. And that's where mine was. So my tumor manifested my brain stem. So it's a bone cancer, but I have a brain tumor, and it's the smallest percentage of the 1 in a million. So I'd rather have the lottery ticket from wherever to win that lottery than this one. But hey, it is the lottery that I've won, and it's part of life, and it's what I've been dealing with, and it's a part of my story now. So it's a bone cancer, but it's in my brain. So my tumor is in my brain, and that's what's been treated, and I've had surgeries on, and a number of things through these past months.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot. So, and what's the duration of when you were diagnosed? And is it just recently that you've been? Are you in remission or?
Well, so very early on into the process. So, as a father, as someone you're working, when you're living that life, and this might be, I'd say, a cautionary tale. Full disclaimer: I'm not a counselor, or a doctor, any sort of professional. I'm just a guy living with cancer, dealing with a lot of things in life. So what I'm saying is my own opinion. It comes from me. But, we need to take care of ourselves, because over the years, there were so many times when, as a dad and as a husband and doing things, you grind.
Yeah.
I've got headaches. My vision's weird. But would I take the time to go get checked out, to do that self-care stuff, to make those yearly appointments?
Yeah.
No, I didn't. So I wrote things off and lived with things. But now, in retrospect and looking back, I'm like, maybe I could have caught this earlier. Maybe it could have been less significant or less of effect on my life. But it's hard to go back. We don't do that, right? We can't go back and redo or undo those kinds of things. But, it's that self-care, it's that self-awareness. But, dealing with headaches and vertigo, and I had some vision things for a while, but I just kind of wrote it off as I'm just a tired dad. I'm just dealing with a lot. I work long hours, the stresses of family and life and all these other things. But probably early in the year, I was having some vision challenges, and I was kind of writing it off to, okay, I need to go get my prescription updated, go see my eye doctor, because I was having binocular double vision types of instances. And they would last longer in certain times, and I was thinking, okay, this is a bit strange. But it was in May. I had been working out at a local gym. That was part of still is my daily routine. Go to the gym.
Good.
And went over to a store, and my vision was totally disconnected, meaning I had 2 full pictures.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, okay, this is worse than it's been. This is far more severe than I've had it yet, and it's not fixing itself, because in many instances, the picture would come back together.
Yeah.
But at this time, I had 2 different pictures in my head. And then I started walking in the store, and people walking in front of me are disappearing. And things are happening. I'm losing people in my field of vision. I'm thinking, oh, wait a minute. This is bad.
So it sounds like to me like your eyes are looking sideways.
No, they were looking where they were. I mean, my
Yeah.
field of gaze was fine, but what was happening that I didn't know at that moment was
Yeah.
the tumors choking out my optical nerves. So the picture can't connect.
Wow.
So the red flags go up. I go home. I think, okay, the red flags are flying in my head, and I say, I'm going to go down to the emergency department locally here and see what's going on. So I go into the hospital, and they start doing the battery of testing to see, well, what's going on. They do top to bottom. Is it your heart? They go through everything. They check you out. And they did a CT scan, and they saw a mass in my head. And they said, okay, let's do an MRI. So immediately go in for the MRI, do that scan. About an hour later, the doctor comes into the room with a phone, with a picture on the phone, and says, I have some bad news.
Oh, wow.
Okay. You have a mass in the middle of your head. We need to send you to Salt Lake for an emergency surgery right now. Okay. That's the way to get some news. Okay. And, processing all that, going through that, that was that moment when you hear you have a problem.
Yeah.
Those discussions, those kind of things in your life, you never expect or want to hear, and there it was. Just dropped in my lap in a small medical room in the hospital. And now the wheels are turning, and you got to make decisions. So, they came in and said, this is what's happening. You have a tumor. There's a mass in your head. It's choking out your vision, your optical nerves. We have to send you to Salt Lake to a neurological surgeon right now for an emergency surgery, because if we don't fix this, you could be blind any moment.
Wow.
So I was put in the back of an ambulance, taken on a transport to Salt Lake, made it up there that Saturday evening, and the next morning, within 12 hours of arriving in Salt Lake, I was under the knife for a 6-hour open head, pull your scalp, everything back, go in, and they were tunneling out this tumor from around my optical nerves to save my vision.
Wow. That's crazy. I mean, and for people that don't know, we're in Cedar City. We're around 3 hours away from Salt Lake.
Yeah, the ambulance drives faster,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
they got there quite a bit quicker. But yeah, it was a pretty quick trip. But yeah, it was about a 3-hour drive in the back of an ambulance, looking the wrong way and going through a number of different things in my mind. I had a wonderful technician that was there, that we had an incredible visit, great person. Can't remember her name right now, but it was, real moments of realization and of contemplation and going through so many things. I mean,
Sheesh.
my family and a number of things going on there, and just the reality of this situation and the unknowns and what was going on and what's in my head and what's going to happen. Those moments of uncertainty and being afraid were so real. And taking that in, and on that trip, it was I'll never forget that trip. I'll never forget that drive to Salt Lake in those initial hours. It was really, really, really hard.
Yeah, that reminds me of the week that we went through when my wife found out that she had breast cancer. I at the time I was working for this place where I would travel a lot. So, and I was a salesman and all that jazz. So I was supposed to leave Monday. Come to find that this is what's going on. So I called my boss. It's like, I didn't know, we didn't know at this stage. I said, hey, my wife's going to the hospital. We're going to go check some stuff out. We're just not sure about what's going on. So we're going to take a day or two off. And then, so we go in there. And it was a horrible experience. Like, we were there all day. I mean, for at least 6 hours, solid 6 hours. And this is up in Murray. When we go in there, they only accept her. So now I'm sitting outside because it's a women's breast cancer place. And, you know, so in my head, I feel like there's just probably women back there topless or something. I don't know. I have no idea. You know what I mean? Like, I can't understand it. My wife's in there by herself. She's kind of freaking out a little bit. She comes out and no answers, you know. I said, well, why couldn't I go in there with you? Why couldn't I be there for comfort? You know, and this is before COVID, you know. And she says, I honestly don't know. It's just another waiting room, you know. So it was kind of frustrating on that level. We go home. We don't know what's going on. We're waiting for a reply back. So I say, well, you know what? I'm just going to go do a quick trip up to Idaho, and I'll go see my stores up there, and then I'll come back. So I'm way up, far west Idaho. I'm up there near Boise, a little bit more west than Boise. And Thursday afternoon, she calls me up. And she says, oh, hey, I just got off the phone with him, and she's crying. And it's breast cancer, and it's pretty bad. So we need to get moving on this pretty quickly. So I was driving to a customer. I just flipped the car around and left, you know what I mean? And then I called my boss. I mean, it will never forget me, and I don't know why some people say certain things, and I'll never understand it, but I called him up, and he kind of knew what was going on, you're right? And he, you know, I don't know what was going through his head. I'm sure a lot running a big business like what he was doing. He's since lost that business too. But he says to me, oh, I said, she's got breast cancer, so I'm on my way home. And he says to me, oh, great. I'm like, what? He goes, oh, you get fake boobs. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to go now. So I just hung up the phone. And then I'm driving all the way back from there to Sandy to see my wife. And it's like that trip. It's just like you don't know what to think. I mean, you're running so many things through your head. And then the little voice says, but you could beat it. The little tiny voice, and it's the smallest of the small, but you could beat it. That voice seemed to control a lot of everything that we went through, even though we were told all the way along, you're not going to make it, you're not going to make it, you're not going to make it. So many things that she went through, and I'll touch on that a little bit later on, but I'm sure that was a very similar drive for you.
It was. You know, those voices, there's so many of those. And like I said, you know, bad news or this type of thing in life, it never comes at convenient times, right? There's always something. And, you know, there were a number of things and factors in my own life, and there was already some challenges and some tumult going on. So there was a lot that was transpiring already that was very hard.
Right.
And then in this instant, you know, this is within a few weeks of receiving other news and other things in life, and it comes and it's like, what else? You know, it's one of those things that you hear about, as I said, you know, early on. We all know someone.
Yeah.
But when it becomes your news, when it becomes your reality, that's different.
Yep.
And that was a big part of it, was not know the unknown, right? You can get the diagnosis that says you have cancer. Well, what does that mean? Do we know what kind it is? Do we know to what severity? There's a lot of things you don't know. They can find it, they can identify it, they can say, yep, we've confirmed that it's here, this is where it's at. But in that moment, there's so much unknown still because there's so much yet to do. And even after I had my first surgery where they did this emergency and saved my vision,
Sure.
the neurologist came out of that meeting and was visiting with family, and he had no idea what he was into. He said this was way different than even what I expected to see or encounter because of the type of cancer it was and what it was doing. You know, they knew that it was a cranial mass, as they would describe it. They knew that it was in this area of my brain. The initial thinking was, well, it could be tied to your pituitary. It could be just a mass in there. Most of the time, those are not malignant. Those are just masses. You deal with them, you treat them, you maintain them, you take care of them, you move forward. But when he came into that surgery, this consensus and his idea was, I don't know what that was.
They all say that.
And coming down later, well, they didn't because of the rarity and really the type of tumor and what it was doing and what it actually was different than what they expected to find. They still did the surgery. My vision's been fine since then, thank goodness. So that was a huge thing that they did. But going forward and, you know, moving forward in the story as we talk about that, you know, that quickly changed when they discovered what it actually was and the rarity of the cancer. I was transferred up to the University of Utah, that health network, Huntsman Cancer Institute, because their specialty and their focus was this, and dealing with the neurologist who is world-renowned for these types of surgeries and this cancer. So, you know, that pivoted and changed at a point. But like you said, early on, when you get that initial jar and shock of you have cancer, you know, you don't know what to do. It's so hard to process because you know what that means, but what does it mean?
No, like, okay, so from that point forth, we go in, we do interviews and all that sort of jazz, right? We're learning more about it. I asked the doctor straight off the bat, what about food? What should she do with food? Oh, no, everything's fine. Just eat whatever you can. Okay. Is there anything else I can do to help her? Just do the chemo. You know what I mean? And that's the only place they steer you. So once I realized that they have their way, and I'm not saying that the doctors are good, bad, or ugly. I just think that they're not looking at all avenues. For starters, depending on the food you eat, you're probably a good candidate for cancer, period, because most of the food we eat in America is full chock-a-block full of stuff we don't know, right? It's not normal. It's not natural. You know what I mean? So I know I've changed a lot to be able to eat as clean as possible. But even at that point, what am I eating? You know what I mean? So the things that I started reading books quite a lot to try and hash out anything. And I would go through, you know, maybe 2 or 3 books a week. And every time I come across a good chapter or a good paragraph, I'd mark it and tape it, and then I'd give it to my wife. Just read that paragraph. Don't worry about anything else. Because they all kind of say the same thing, you know. And in the respects of breast cancer specifically, if you have, a root canal, right? Whatever, most people that have had root canals that have had breast cancer, the breast that is infected, man or woman, would be the same side as whichever you did the root canal on. Okay. So they say to back it out, pull it all out of there, and for like 2 weeks straight, your face just stinks. Because it's just an oil well of toxicity. Wow. And it slowly leaches down, and it's the breast tissue that's the breast and the genitals is the tissue that's most susceptible to catch it and to activate cancer. So that's, and I'm no doctor, you know, at all, but that's, so I read that fairly early on, and it cost us, I don't know, a couple of grand for her to go to a dentist. And the dentist is like, you want me to do what? And we explained it, and I explained it to him, and he goes, oh, okay. I said, well, does that make sense to you? Well, it actually does. And he explained what he knew, which they don't tell you. because when you're capping it, you're locking things in there.
Yeah.
Right? And it's a rotting tooth and all the toxicity that comes with it. So I would say no to root canals, period. Just yank that thing and do whatever you got to do to make it work. So that in a couple of books, they both cross-reference that was the source that was growing it. So hers, she was a straight stage 4.
That's what she came diagnosed as. She was
Diagnosed straight
wow.
stage 4. I mean, her boob was inflamed and there was a big lump in there. And she did the operation. She got it removed. She got a placement holder so she could still feel like a woman later on in life. And then we started treatments. Before anything happened, we had like 4 days. I just took time off and I said, okay, what do you want to do? And she's like, let's go to Disneyland. I was like, done, let's go. So we went to Disneyland and visited all her friends down there, and she used to work for Disney and stuff like that. So that was great. We took the kids, and they were fairly young at the time. Actually, really young. My little guy was just barely coming on 1 year old or whatever. And then we get back, and then all the business starts. But within the first 3 weeks, I found out about that. About the root canal thing, so I told her about it, and I said it's up to you. And whilst I was learning about that, I also learnt how to make your body less acidic and more basic. So every morning I have pH strips. I'm checking her saliva, and I'm checking her urine, and morning and night. Right, and then we're working, and then I'm slowly throwing a diet together that makes sense, which mostly consumed around shakes, because once she started chemo, she didn't want to eat anything. Yeah. So we started formulating this sort of stuff and going down that rabbit hole. Did you do things like that too? Did you look into that?
I ate fairly healthy, as I said, going to the gym. I had spent some time where, as going back to that father, dad being busy, I had kind of pushed aside, and I had been less than aggressive when it came to my physical health. I was overweight for quite a while. Went to the local gym, was getting in better shape, felt a lot better, eating well, having a pretty good regimentation, a lot of home meals, a lot of good things that way.
Good.
Taking care of that way. So wouldn't say overall unhealthy, but there were things, it's looking at that, as you said, looking at those ingredients, cutting out, the sugars and these kinds of things that are really, they're feeders into that.
Yeah.
You read any of these, medical books, and they talk a lot about just how the natural sugars feed and go into that, and the cancers, they love those kinds of things. But even these preservatives and the artificial types are even worse, because they're synthesized, they're all these other things, and they're unnatural, and anything unnatural in the body that's already there, or something that's alien or outside, is going to cling to that and hook to those imperfections and just make it worse. So, I was never really a soda person or those things, but trying to avoid that and to eat healthier. But I mean, you get to that point where, and I know for myself, fast forwarding a little bit, so go to the end of June, I have another scan. This is with the first medical group, and the neurologist comes back, and they've done another scan the end of June, and they say, well, we've rescanned your tumor, and it's regenerated.
Youch.
Everything they took out had come back, and it was larger. And it had done it within 6 weeks. It was growing that fast, and it was being aggressive. I don't know if it got woken up through surgery and being found and made it angry.
Yeah.
And it just decided to go.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of other factors that were going on in life, stressors and different things that could have, been part of that. I'm not sure.
What I read about your situation in general, whenever, have you noticed, like, whenever someone has cancer on their body, not in their head, they know now, because before they would just take the cancer and then it would do that.
Yeah.
It would come back twice as bad. So once you cut into it, it's like you piss it off. You know what I mean? And the tricky thing, like, my friend had throat cancer, a guy I knew anyway, and they took half his neck's gone, you know what I mean, and into his shoulder. I mean, they just clean him right out, and he's still living to tell a tale.
Yeah.
So in brains, you can't do that because I mean, as it is, your cranium's kind of full. You know.
Hopefully, there's a lot in there. Right? I mean, that is one thing I've told people is, you know, I've had many MRIs. I do have a brain in my head.
Yeah, there
so
you go.
I can
Yeah,
confirm
yeah.
that there is something there. But yes, I mean, that was the thing that was kind of surprising too, because this type of cancer, traditionally, and mine is categorized as a traditional chordoma. There are some different types and different things that they do and how they act when it
Yeah.
comes to growth, but usually slow growing. So, you know, there's different opinions out there, and I've talked to multiple people on my medical team, and they say, you know, you could have very easily, this could have been growing in your brain for up to 10 years.
Yeah, you would never know about it.
You
It
don't
just
know
lays
because
dormant.
it's slow growing, it was malignant, but at this point, this regeneration, where what they cut out, they said was about 25 to 30%. And really the focus of that first surgeon was to save my vision. So it was carving out tumor around my optical nerve and the chiasm and all that. So really that's what they did. But when they went and rescanned at the end of June, it had all come back and refilled in, and it was even larger. And that's when they raised their hand and said, we're going to refer you to the University of Utah and to
work that
the
out.
specialist and the neurologist there, who is a world-renowned surgeon and deals with these. So I go back up north, and then I have a second surgery where they actually remove a large part of the mass that's in the center of my brain.
Okay. I just want to pause you there for a sec. I'm trying to understand the timeline. When did you find out? What year was it?
Okay, so
yeah.
so
Let's establish that.
discovery,
So we can understand it.
So May 4th of this year.
Oh, this year. This is new.
This is all within
You're
the
still
last 6
spinning.
months.
Wow.
So less than 6 months ago, May 4th, I was in the gym that morning, went over to that store, and that's when everything started to happen. So on May 4th is
the
when I
4th,
was
huh?
told you have a mass in your head. So shipped up to Salt Lake.
Yeah.
May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, I have an open brain surgery to save my vision.
Wow.
That's a Sunday morning. So now we fast forward about a month and a half till end of June, around June 23rd, 24th. I'm on a phone call with the neurology team in Salt Lake, and they say, this mass has regenerated itself. At this point, they know what kind of a tumor it is. It's this type of cancer. We need to send you to the University of Utah. And I was referred over, and I traveled up there, and the next morning I checked into neurology at University of Utah, and that was a Tuesday. I'd have to look at my calendar to see the date. But on the Thursday, I had my second brain surgery, which was around June 27th. So within a month and a half, this went that quickly to where I was having a second brain surgery. And so in a month and a half, from discovery to my second surgery up at University of Utah Neurology. So it all moved very quick.
I can't see any scar. Do they keyhole it, or you look like an
So the first one,
right?
the first one was an open. It was an open surgery. So a craniotomy. They opened me up from about my right eyebrow all the way back to my ear, and they literally pull back your skin and your muscle and expose your skull.
Holy moly.
And then they cut out a square and they go in, and that's how they operate. So that was the first surgery, a craniotomy.
They did a great job. I mean, you still got plenty of good movement and everything.
Yeah, and you know, there was a time there where there was some,
Little?
you know, nerve ending and numbness, but real for the good part and how they put me back together. I mean,
Wow.
not that I'm the greatest looking guy, but you know what? I can't be that for Halloween because the scars aren't so disfiguring that
they're not.
they made a
They're
problem.
really
They did
not.
an amazing job.
I can see you do have a slight line
there's-
there, but it's very minuscule. It looks like maybe that was 10 years ago or something.
Yeah, but it was just within the last months.
That's crazy, amazing.
And then the second surgery, they actually went up through my nasal canal. They removed cartilage. They moved from the top of there and went up into that area, the brainstem, and that's where they did the surgery. And to be honest, the second recovery and that second surgery was far more miserable. Waking up from that surgery and dealing with everything inside my head and how that was, I felt like it was far worse than the external, you know, the look and dealing with that. But
At the nose in general, right?
yeah, just
Yeah.
going up through the nose and
Yeah.
that surgery,
That's painful.
it was
And they gotta-
painful. It was uncomfortable.
Yeah. It's a cavity that can collapse very easily, so they got to put all sorts of things to keep it out
Yeah.
open and wide, and then they pull that stuff out, and it's like, oh, horrible,
Yeah.
horrible, horrible.
So when they went into that second surgery, they were able to remove of the mass, which was about the size of a golf ball. I can send
my
it to you, and you could. I would allow you to post it if you wanted to
Yeah,
show
sure.
people online later. But the mass was the size of a golf ball,
Wow.
and it was sitting in my brain stem, right behind my eyes, my nasal cavity. So it kind of fills that area.
Did any of that affect? Because I mean, up in the frontal cortex, isn't that like that's where all our deductive reasoning and things like that? Isn't that how that works?
You know, it's
were
it's
affected?
hard to say. It's so hard to go back, like I said earlier, and you know the what ifs or what was. It's really hard to say over these past years how that's affected things.
Yeah.
You know, I would deal with vertigo, migraine headaches. I would deal with a
Do you
number
still
of things.
get that?
Not as bad now, no. I mean, I get a lot more. Now my pain's more tied to recovery and cancer and knowing what it is. I mean, I deal with a number of things every day. But
Wow.
the things that I was dealing with then and wrote off as, well, being a dad and being stressed and any number of things I would write it off as, I look back now in retrospect and I think, I wonder if that was really that.
Yeah. Has it changed your personality at all? I mean, you seem like a very level-headed person, period. I'm sure your kids will have something different to say.
You know, and they fairly could.
Yeah.
They really could. I don't know, and that's the hard part too. Is, you know, in life there's been a lot of other changes too. You know,
As you grow, you get. I think we get
do.
better with age.
But even in my personal life, there's been a lot happen, even in this same time period.
Oh wow.
But it's hard to look and to know, and you know, I don't want to. I wouldn't chalk it up to say, yeah, I could push everything off and say it was cancer. You know, I don't know. It's hard to say because with those kind of things.
Yeah, it
because,
seems like it's not.
and where it was at in my brain, it was affecting a lot of things. I mean, in your pituitary area,
Yeah.
that's where your adrenal glands,
No,
your
yeah.
thyroid. I mean, that's where everything hormonally is controlled. That's the center for what your body does and how it creates
Yep.
everything to keep you going and keep you balanced. So it's hard to say. I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, I feel like,
No, I would say no. You would notice, and the people would notice around you. I read quite a few. So my wife's cancer ended up what put her in the grave was her brain was affected. So and from that point onwards, I would see many things change with just what she was going through especially through the last probably about 4 months of her life, maybe 5 months of her life. That's where she really started hitting walls and things were not working right, and she'd fall over, and you know what I mean. But we looking into that. The other question I got so much to talk about there. But looking into like going into your brain, your pituitary gland, that they say that excretes like an MDA. DMT, dimethyltryptamine. So they say, and it's proven that when we dream at night, it excretes little tiny bits of that, and that's how our dreams become so vivid to us. It's like we're seeing things, right? There's a whole array of different world out there in that aspect. But they say that when you pass away, that opens right up, and that's where when people say that they see things and they've come back from death, that's usually your pituitary gland just like overloading the system. So did you have any visions throughout anything, or were your dreams any different, or because you're saying it was right up against it, so maybe something happened there?
you know, no, I wouldn't say anything that was really, say, outlandish or anything
Hallucinogenic,
that
yeah.
was really kind of out there that way. I do recall very clearly, you know, when I was in my first surgery. So I was coming out from under general anesthesia. I had a many hour open brain surgery, and I was waking up. And I remember this vivid dream where I'm at the gym, And there's at the gym you have a machine called a pec deck, you know, where you squeeze together and it activates, and I'm tied to this machine in the dream. I've got kind of hand wrist wraps on, but the weight's so heavy that I can't pull this together. I can't move. And my kids are all walking by me and I can't get to them. So in my dream, it's very vivid. I'm very frustrated. I'm very angry. I'm tied down. I can't get to my kids. I can't break free. I can't get through whatever I'm dealing with to get to my kids.
Wow.
Well, in real life, come to find out, there are 7 orderlies and nurses restraining me to a hospital bed because I'm waking up violently from surgery. And they're saying, this is a strong guy, because it was 7 people and I was literally tied down with restraints, which was holding me back. So in my dream and reality, but I have family there and they're observing this, but I don't remember that. I remember the dream, and it's kind of a crazy dream, and it's been something that's kind of stuck with me because it was so vivid and painful in a way and so frustrating. But in reality, it was playing out to where that was going on in real life.
Absolutely.
And there was a whole room of hospital people when I actually woke up, because I don't remember the fighting or dealing with them. I just remember the dream. But I wake up and there's, you know, half a room of nurses and people staring at me with eyes wide open, like, okay, how are you, sir? Who's this monster? And it was, but that was really the only thing that was kind of out there that way, was that kind of a thing. But it was right around the surgery and that. But
I'm sure that's why we have dreams, right? We're trying to we're trying to deal with all the stuff we're going through in life. It absolutely seems like your hands are tied. You've been dealt this blow, and then you say your family's right there, but you can't get to them. I mean, that's a very deep line of will I be here? Will I not? Will I get them? Will I not? So of course you were fighting for your life, you know. And when you woke up, were you reasonable at that stage, or were you still fighting?
Well, I came to be. You know, I came to be. It was, you know, there were people there and they were helping me. And I was when I woke up, I was okay. But when in that in between time of whatever coming out of the anesthesia was to being awake and alert and aware of where I was, there was that time where I was a different person. It was not me, whoever was tied in there and dealing with those frustrations and the reality of that situation. And there were other factors too, but you know, those all tied into that moment of, you know, that nightmare that I was living in real life and was playing out, unfortunately, in front of a whole bunch of unfortunate nurses and people who had to keep me safe in themselves. So
that's legit. That's a lot, and this is such a harsh. I mean, you're so condensed, and you're here and you're talking like as if this was 5 years ago, which is kind of interesting. You know what I mean? Like you seem very well put together, and I don't mean any malice at all. You seem really good, man.
Thank you. I'm trying. There's been a lot going on. You know, these last 6 months have been the most challenging experience of my life. Not just for this, there are many different levels and layers to kind of life and changes and things happening.
I want to talk about that actually. So you've gone through this. You mentioned a couple of times that you were going through other stuff as well around you, and I'm sure other people were at the same point. What were you going through? How was your family at this stage up till now? Let's talk about that, like the behind the scenes of what life was.
So, you know, during that, I won't get into too much detail on some of it, just
whatever you feel
sake.
comfortable with,
But, you know, within these months of, you know, in spring into diagnosis and through this time, there's been separation and divorce occur in my life.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And it's been hard.
Yeah.
Had death in family. You know, my mother, when I was up in Utah, northern Utah, for my own surgeries, my mother fell. She went ill and she never recovered. She passed away.
Oh, no.
After I was out of the hospital with my second surgery, right around the 4th of July, she passes away. So within this 6-month period, I've had these major life changes all stacked on top of each other. You know, the familial changes, those dynamics and all that comes with that, then in the middle, now being back and dealing with things.
Just for clarity, and I'm not going to touch too much
That's
on
okay.
it. Going through a divorce, this happened before the cancer come along, or was this because of the cancer?
No, it was not because.
Okay,
No,
okay.
It was not tied to that at
Okay.
all. There were many things before,
Sure.
but it came into reality in the same time frame.
Just
But it
the
was
crescendo
not.
of everything was just a bad
But it was
timing.
not tied to. It was not related to any of that. There was no decision made or anything regarding that. So that is
Yeah.
that was not part of anything that way. But it was just a part of, unfortunately, life and changes and some things that way. But it was there. The diagnosis and cancer came along within literally weeks of some developments there. But then July, my mother passes away, so it's all
Yeah.
lumped together, and then
Yeah.
finalization of that first part happens in the middle, and then treatments and being gone. So there's been this 6 months has been just very
It's a
intense, and it's
yeah.
it's been a fire.
Yeah. No, it sounds like the San Francisco fire of sorts. And then 2 seconds on your mum, and I'm sorry that she
No, thank
passed.
you.
It seems the message you're putting across there. It seems like you didn't really get a chance to say goodbye because you were tied up with what you were going through.
I did in a way. So I was able, I was released from the hospital. Like I said, I had my second major brain surgery on a Thursday.
Right.
And on a Sunday, they released me I could leave,
Wow.
which is pretty incredible. You think
That's fast.
they can
That's
turn you
so
out of a
fast.
hospital after 4 days of a major brain surgery,
Yeah.
removing part of a tumor.
You think that you'd have to hit sure you had to hit certain targets to make sure you're
Yeah,
fine to
I mean,
go.
and I did. There was a
Yeah.
lot of occupational therapy and physical. I had to check a lot of boxes to go up and down stairs and be safe, but I was able to come out of the hospital. But I was able to go down into her hospital room. She was down in the Provo area.
Oh, so you weren't too far away from her then?
She wasn't too far. I was in Salt Lake. She was in Provo, but I was able
man.
to see her, and she saw me well, and I was able to have some moments and visit with her. And then I came back down here to Cedar City
Yeah.
over the holidays and to be around, and that's when her health turned.
Yeah.
And I did not make it back up. But seeing her and she being able to see me upright and being okay, I had closure
No, that's
for
I mean,
myself in
it's-
that. And it was, I was able to
helps.
have that moment to where when that moment of finality came for her life and I knew that she was passing,
Yeah.
I had a peace that I was okay. And it was okay with me.
Man, that kind of guts me a little bit. It's you go from ramping into life this year to losing parts of your life. Doors closing and people moving on. That's always hard. I went through my first marriage. Doors were closed and nothing was ever answered. You know what I mean? And you never get answers. You never get them. Doesn't matter what people say. They're probably not real. And whatever the case may be, it's a sad scenario. Just to what I was thankful for with my wife was I'm super thankful that I was there for her. For her to face what she was going through, especially when it turns into brain, like when brains get messed with. I mean, that's pretty heavy. Who was your support structure?
My
Because you need it. I mean, support is so. I mean,
You
I'm
do.
I'm sorry to even take it there,
no, it's okay.
but it's
No, and that's with a lot of the other changes. That has been and was and will be for a while.
yeah.
A very difficult part. But my my kids,
Yeah.
every day.
Shout out to them. How old are your kids?
So I have 6. Age range.
That's awesome.
Oldest 19. High school graduate.
Great.
National Guard.
Oh, wow.
Amazing
Appreciate
dynamic
the service.
woman. She's awesome, and all the way down to a 3-year-old.
Oh my goodness.
So
Wow.
quite the age range.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
But they were there for you.
yeah. I mean, as they could be, because it was hard with, and especially, being back and forth, a lot going on up in northern Utah, and then being gone from.
Man, I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're okay.
We
From
need tissues here.
being gone from August, 2.5, almost 3 months in radiation therapy, which we haven't even talked about yet, right?
We haven't. I mean,
But
we
going
will.
into that and being gone for almost 3 months, every day of a week,
Yeah.
to not seeing them, that gutted me. That was the hard part.
Yeah.
And that was dealing with that and going through a lot of that was really that place of that tempest, the storm, everything that was emotional and spiritual and mental, and the balance of physical, because as you know,
You're a
when you're
strong
fighting
person.
cancer, it all comes into play. And
Everything.
depending on the day, one of those is going to be more aggressive and take over, and it's going to push how you work.
Yeah.
And it was hard because, that there was a lot of the dynamically changed support-wise and structure-wise and just in life that was pretty jarring and instantaneous and happened very quickly. But my kids have been that rock for me, and they have been and will be along the way, because, almost daily I tell them, you're my heroes.
Yeah. Let's just pause right there for 2 seconds. We're at the top of the hour, just gone past it. Right now you're listening to KSUU, Thunder 91 FM, and you can also catch us on YouTube. That's Widowed Trio and Freedom. Widowed Trio, I'm a widowed father. Trio is my 2 little boys, and Freedom is what we're working for. So go over there, tune in. You can see us right now. But it's quite a message that we're getting across, and to be able to share this experience, I commend you. I can't even begin to think about walking in the shoes that you've had to deal with. You know what I mean? And life does things for weird reasons. We have no idea. But I bet you in like 3 or 4 years' time from now, you're going to look back and go, "Wow, that made my life better." You know what I mean? And you have the right outlook. You are a very remarkable person, just to even be here to be so coherent and be just, you're full of life, man. You've just been dealt some huge blows, and I mean they're massive in many aspects. I remember, losing my first wife, and we're not losing her, like we are splitting up.
Yeah.
Man, and no questions are answered. You feel gutted, and then the self-doubt that comes in, and all of that is just absolutely horrible. And it takes a time. And the biggest thing I can ever advise to anyone, and I'm sure you're probably learning this the hard way, is you got to love you before you can love anyone else. So you got to build that back to you, right?
Well, I think that's so right. And, and going back to, kind of where we started, that taking care of yourself, if you don't take care of yourself, how can you take care of anyone else that's important in your life? Because if it's health, if we're not doing screenings or scans, that's a shout out to be healthy.
Yep.
If it says go get a checkout, if you're at a certain age, if you have certain things, go get checked out. Please set appointments.
Yeah.
Make sure to make and take the time, whoever you are, man or woman, whatever you believe in and whatever you do, but go get your body checked out, because if you can't be healthy and you're left at that mercy, it's the would've, could've, should've's, right? If your wife gets scanned earlier, we never know. If I would have gone in years earlier and maybe had a scan, would it be different? I don't know. But there's those parts. But then also, we have to make time. Stephen Covey wrote many amazing books.
Absolutely.
But he talks about sharpening the saw. That if we do things too much and we don't take the time to really focus in on each of those teeth and resharpening them and doing things in our lives to make the edge of that saw cut and be precise and be exact.
You can't keep cutting.
Well, you can't only keep cutting, but your cuts start to get more jagged and causes things and that's what I look back, and that's, my regret for a number of things. The failures and the losses and the things that I look at now as I sit here at this, with the culmination of all these events kind of at the same time, is the regret I have for not taking and making that time to be better for those important people for that relationship, for my kids at times, because the thing that does happen, and you probably saw this with your dear wife, once you receive that notification and you get information that says, this thing you have is bad and probably eventually is going to take your life.
Oh, yeah.
It changes everything.
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 Yeah.
So the way that I look at being a dad now,
Yeah.
the way that I look at spending time with my kids, the intentionality of everything I
squeezing it,
do,
right?
every single moment matters.
Yeah.
When I'm with them,
Be present.
whatever that sports notification on my phone says can wait.
Yeah.
Whatever else is going on, I put it away. I want to look them in the eye.
Yep.
I want to take a picture of them. I want to spend that moment because time is so precious.
Oh, it's the only thing that we have that's very limited, and if we don't spend it the right way, you soon find out. You know, what I mean, and there's so many parents out there. I cringe because to grow a little human is such an honor in so many ways, and so many people don't take the time to grow a human. You know, they this kid's a burden. You know, things like that, and how. I just wish people would just open their eyes up a little more. You know, when you take that responsibility, or you know, if mess ups happen or whatever the case is, you just got to cut certain things out of your life, and you got to be present for them. And it changes their world, and it changes your world. And the better, I just talked about this in therapy just yesterday. You know, I mean, like there was a time where I'd love to go to a bar and have a drink with a good friend, or maybe a couple of good friends, and we could have a good laugh. You know what I mean? But now, taking my kids to Disneyland, you know, and hitting all the big rides that we can, and just hitting all the right stuff. You know what I mean? Because that was a place that their mum worked at. She did a lot of arts things there and stuff like that. So we get to see some of her work that she's done, and we get to experience that together. It's not easy to do, but at the end of the day, when it's done and it's in the book, it's like, what a memory. You know what I mean? Like we look back at that, it's so fond, and we're so well bonded. Where some people, they don't get that bond with their kids, and that just breaks my heart.
Yeah, and you know, those moments we realize, and in life too, that how fleeting they can become.
Yeah.
When you look back and things go into that rear view mirror and you travel and you have to keep moving because that's what life does, right?
Yeah.
We can't sit still. We can't just be sitting there and moping about what's happening and just stop. We have to keep moving. But what happens is a lot of those things from the past that we've gone by, they become smaller and smaller, and we can't get them back. And there's regret. I know personally in dealing with that over many things over these months. You know, looking back, rehashing so many things in my own life, and looking at that and having that time now to, when my kids, I get some moments or time, and then it might be the end of the night and they're walking up a driveway and I'm leaving.
That's heartbreaking, man.
It's hard, but you know, it's using those moments and realizing how precious those are and never taking it for granted, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because as a parent, as a spouse, as a friend, as a worker, whatever you're doing, do it the best you can, because nothing's guaranteed. Tomorrow you could get your news. And there's a lot of people dealing with those things that are listening now that might see this later, but we all have those things. But man, how precious time becomes when we really have to focus in on time and what we're doing with it. Because as you said, that's the only thing we can freely give. We all have the same amount, which I always love that, because depending on who you talk to, there's not enough hours in the day. Well, as far as I checked, that clock ticks the same for you and I and Ryan or whoever else is out there listening.
Until it's extinguished.
Until it's not.
Yeah.
But we all have that, and some people, I'm bored. Okay. I'm this. What does that mean, right?
Yeah. You go
but
after
there's so much that can happen and does happen in our lives, but capturing those moments and taking advantage of those
Yeah.
moments and realizing how important they are, especially, you know, going back to that question with my support and my kids, there were things that I did, and unfortunately, you know, very far from a perfect person. And many of the things that come my way and have happened is because I've made mistakes too. But I look at being a father now, and I look at going forward and what I want to do and how I want to be, never wasting a moment again with my kids,
Yeah.
because how they've been to me and who they are and what they represent, that is everything.
You know, touching on all of that, which is like, just take a leaf out of that book there, guys. 'Cause I tell you, it can change your world when you take the attention off yourself and put it onto your kids. I was working away from Monday to Friday, usually for late Friday night. I'd get home. You know what I mean? And I had been doing that for about 2 years at the time. It was pretty crazy. You know what I mean? And we agreed that I was making good money, so my wife could be home, and she wanted to start doing stuff, so she did, but on the side and building up. But she was taking care of the kids, and I was drifting more apart from my family. You know what I mean? And that's a silver bullet right there. It's so bad. I mean, and we have to work these crazy hours to get the crazy money or some money. Otherwise, we're you know. And when I wasn't doing that, when I didn't have those opportunities, man, I would still have a normal job, and I'll be doing a pizza run, and you know what I mean, just to make the extra, because living these days is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Really upsets me the most, especially when you've got these big corporations just squeezing us ever so more. I mean, and you hear their profit lines in the billions and billions of dollars, which is just ridiculous. And here we are working our heart out, losing family over it, or losing time with our family. The one thing about my wife, when she passed away, I was so mad, so upset, just feel like I've been just wrong done by in so many ways. You know what I mean? My mother and father were in Australia. They're obviously separated. Wasn't the best upbringing for me, so I'm not talking with those guys. And I think my mum called me up 2 months after my wife passed away, and I hadn't done much, man. I was just hurting and staring at walls. And she blew up at me and dropped F-bombs and everything, you know. She was just, "You didn't tell me your effing wife died." I was like, "Hey, whoa. If this is what you got to say to me, don't say anything at all." We haven't talked since.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And I mean, it's just a shameful situation, because there's been times where I needed support and I didn't have it. Right? My wife's family disappeared. I said to them beforehand, I was like, "Hey, you're acting like you're never going to see the boys again. You can see them whenever you want. You just let me know." And I'll never take them away from you. And one of them turned around and said to me, "You better not," with the most silverest tongue I've ever seen. You know what I mean? And glared and stared at me. And I was like, "You just have to tell me when. And you guys can see the boys anytime." They live in Logan, and I go out of my way many of times, and it costs me lots of money to do so they can keep that relationship going. But they never call me. You know what I mean? The mother and father do, but that's just to see the boys. And now I suppose that later on in life they're trying to get back into my world. But I think that ship sailed now, you know what I mean? And I've learned to deal with it by myself, so I'll continue to deal with it by myself. I'm a stronger person for it, and I kind of like it that way. The ultimate sacrifice that my wife paid was her life ending equaled my life starting. And I have changed everything, and I shut everything down. I've been, over the last 4 years, this is the brokest I've ever been in my whole entire life, and my cup is overfilling every day. You know, and when I was making, and I was making good money. I was pulling in some really good money there, and we could do whatever we wanted to. But I now, knowing what I had and what I hadn't at the time, this path that I'm on right now is amazing.
Yeah.
You know, and I get the chance to I go home at night, and as soon as I pick the boys up, I take them to jiu-jitsu, I take them to go do stuff, and my time is just theirs while they're awake, and then 8:30, 9 o'clock, they go to bed, and then I go back into my schoolwork and things like that, and focus in on my world, and it's a hectic world, I'm still learning how to juggle it. It's not easy, but I'm super thankful for this school. SU's been really good to me so far, and I appreciate what they got going on around here, and Ryan especially, like he's a major staple in my corner at the moment, and I truly appreciate that guy. I remember going into his class and him talking about being on the radio. I'm like, I'm not doing that, and here I am, and it's amazing. But her sacrifice changed my world, and I'm super grateful. And for the rest of my days, I'll honor her all the way, because she's that good and she's that worth it. And it's made an amazing life for me. So I can't, even though my hate at the time or my hurting at the time was pretty brutal, and I'm sure I pushed many people away because of it, I'm thankful. I've come through the other side. And it seems like you've already dealt with a lot of stuff, and I'm sure you're still dealing with many more. But that's a lot to swallow in this small amount of 6 months for yourself. Like I take my hat off to you.
There is,
That's hard,
and that's the thing for me is I look at everything that's occurring, has occurred. The new realities, the chapters that we write and where we're at. And, and I think what you said is right now, yes, there are the stressors, there's the changes, there's a lot that comes into play,
Big time.
with life changes too, coming back here after being gone for so long, reestablishing myself in a different way and dynamic after many, many years of not. That whole part is very challenging and different, but I think ultimately what I try to default to every day is gratitude.
Yeah.
Because you have to.
Yeah.
Because I'm grateful, as I said, my children are my rocks. They were gifted and given me through an incredible person.
Sure.
And I honor and respect and love that part for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Even though there's changes and that's different. But also I look at cancer and one thing for me that I've said along the way, I've never been mad at my cancer. I've never been mad about having it. I'm grateful because it opened up for me a world that I didn't know, I knew existed, but I didn't understand. The family of cancer survivors, those families, those people that you can see on a street, you can give them a hug. The other night I had an incredible conversation with one of our local high school football coaches, his family. They're dealing with some things too.
Yeah.
And just having this conversation, and at the end of this conversation, his amazing wife, his son's there, and we cry together for a minute. We hug. Why? We're part of a family.
Sure.
And being up at the Huntsman Cancer Institute, those people there, incredible. They know you by name. I mean, I was there long enough that I guess they had time to get to know you, but you're not just a number or a patient. You're a person who is dealing with something real. And you go into a waiting room, and there's 7 other men in there waiting to go into their respective room for their own radiation treatment. You become friends. You exchange numbers. You text each other. There's a guy, John. I text him almost daily. He lives in the Caribbean, was dealing with prostate cancer. We were there together for 3 weeks or so. We chatted every day. You make these relationships and you build up this support and this love and realize how big the world is, but how small it can be for you and how many people can matter and what matters. And, for me, having these things happen, they've been building blocks and they're helping me be better,
Yeah.
I go to the gym a lot, and one thing that you talk about at the gym, and again, as I said earlier, disclaimer in medical stuff, I'm not the trainer. I'm not that guy. I just go work out. I just try to work hard. But something I've learned is when we spend time under tension is when we grow.
Yep.
That is when the most work and that is when the most growth and strength happens and comes. is when we spend that time under tension. That's that area between if you're laying on a bench press and you push up a weight and you're thinking, is this going to crush my chest, or am I going to be able to push this all the way up and finish? But it's the moments that you're holding it there and you're bearing the weight and you're sitting there and you're holding it. That's when you're doing the most work, is when you're under that tension and that pressure that you can hold the weight and you can maintain it. And that's what life is. That's what it becomes, is how we can do that. And as we do that, we grow.
Life finds a way.
You know, for myself, there's been a lot of time under tension, but I feel like I've come out a far different and changed and better person in many ways.
Yeah.
In many ways. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for all of it because it's taught me and brought me to who I am now.
Yeah, I would go as far as saying, for whatever reason, right? Yeah, you were living life and life was going and all that sort of jazz, but I don't think that you were lined up with your true north for you as a person as a whole. And life has a better plan for who you are, right?
Well,
Some say God.
I would agree. And I would say, in fairness, for those in my life too, I wasn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't who I needed to be.
No.
Or who I should have been.
Yeah. That's that's a good outlook to have.
You have to
man.
have that wake-up call
Yeah.
to become the person that they need you to be too. You
Yep.
know, there's many opportunities, and along the way of life, you know, you read some people in their belief systems have those moments where people wake up or get a wake-up call, or in real life, or you have those events that occur that change everything and make you realize you're not where you need to be and doing what you need to be doing.
Yeah.
And you have to make whole-scale changes. And if you don't,
It'll work out a way to do it for you.
it'll do it for
It'll
you.
crash the walls around you. And I think that's what it did to me, and it sounds like that's what it did to you.
Yep.
I look forward to seeing what happens for you in the future. Hey, where did you grow up? Did you grow up around here, or where were you
I
at?
did. So somewhat local. I grew up in a little mining town, you know, west of here called Pioche, Nevada.
Oh, yeah.
So grew up out in Pioche, little mining town out there. I spent through my high school years there. Went to college down in St. George. It then was Dixie, now Utah Tech.
Yeah.
Went to school there. You know, served an LDS, a church mission. Went and did that. Came back, went back there, met, you know, my wife at the time. You know, we lived there in St. George for a time. That's where our family began. Spent about 9 years up in Oregon. Shout out to Ryan, you know, the Oregon connection.
Ah, there you go.
So was in Oregon for a time, and about 3 years ago came back. So, you know, lived in a few different places, but grew up kind of locally. Cedar City was always the big city. You know, that's where we came over to literally get milk and groceries because
wow.
the small little convenience stores in town only had so much, and we'd come here to do major shopping and do all the school stuff. But Cedar was the biggest city, you know, that was close.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because I look at Cedar City. I mean, I'm from Sydney, right?
Okay.
This is a little town.
It is.
I mean, it's not as little as like Blanding, Utah, or Pioche, as you say. Pioche, that's not too far away from Area 51, is that right?
It's
down the
not.
road,
It's
huh?
not too far.
Yeah. I've driven through there, man, and I did the drive across with my uncle and aunt and my stepfather. We all went out there, cut across the land there, and I tell you, when you get close to that place, there's no cell service. It's a weird, eerie feeling that you're out there all on your lonesome, like you're driving back in the 80s or 70s or something. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
That was interesting. There's some people out there. Shout out to those guys. They're a little different.
It is, you know, small communities, but you know, you talk about that support, and there's a loyalty to that type of environment. You know, those small towns. I know during a lot that I've been going through, if I ever see a number that's not saved in my phone and it says Pioche on it, I always answer, because those kind of people, those people that grew up that I was around and I know, are the most amazing people, because it's more than family, it's more than friends, right? It's those people that are in your life and are those glue kind of people that are there in thick or thin. And there's a number of them that live close, and
Yeah.
you know, I'm good friends and I have good support there. And there's people that I text and call almost on a daily that are amazing and have helped me in so many ways. But you know, those kind of towns, those kind of people, they're amazing people.
They're very loyal to their people.
They are.
There is no
Absolutely.
doubt. I experienced that on the other side of Blanding, actually. Everyone was my friend until my wife passed away, and then it was get out of the town before I was chased out of there type thing. Yeah, it was really weird. It was very odd. But, you know, the funny thing about it is like I never disrespected my wife. You know what I mean? Like, and for anyone that turned their back on me because of her not being here now, I'm still here, and I did good by her. I did right by her. You know what I mean? That they're the tougher things that you get. You know to experience that, but you know, sad situations, and then you move on. You mentioned it kind of seems like that you and your ex now. You seem like you're very cordial with each other. There's no hate there at all, right?
No, not at all.
I love that.
I mean, as I've said, this is...
long time coming.
You know, this is an amazing person who has given me the best part of my life, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, so there is love, there's respect, there's
sorry,
honor.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot there still.
No, yeah. I don't... sorry to even
no,
bring
you're
it
fine.
up.
But in that way, no. You know, there's hard, but the best parts of me came from her.
Oh, yeah.
So I will always praise and honor that because
I love that.
it's awesome.
I love that. The reason why I bring it up is just because there's so many people out there that fight and cuss and carry on, and you know, it's just not needed, especially when you had respect and love for that person at one stage, you know. So I commend you guys to be so cordial, and to be there for the kids is probably the biggest thing ever. So
that's what matters.
Yeah. So what do you? Let's touch into what do you do for work? You're still working, right?
I do. Yeah, amazing company that I work for has, you know, you talk about the silver linings, right? You find those happy things that you hook onto, and those are your positives. Amazing company that is here locally. You know, I was actually doing some job transition and changing, and I literally call my new boss, who I was going to be hired on with. It was in the week of my first surgery, the emergency, and I call him from, you know, going to an operating room, and I say, I'm going in for an emergency brain surgery. I'm not going to be at work on Tuesday. Would you still hire me?
Wow.
And we're holding your job and all this. And
that's amazing.
They were. And, you know, as I was off and dealing with medical things, they've taken care of me. But work locally, you know, we work with underground utilities. We do support that way. You know, replacing piping, doing things like that. We have a production facility here. I do logistics management coordination. You know, I work here, kind of run the west coast of the U.S.
What's the company called?
What's that?
What's the company called?
The company that locally is called In Situ Form.
In Situ Form.
Yeah, I work for...
Shout out to those guys.
Yeah, they're
That's amazing.
You know, it's an amazing organization with
Yeah.
incredible people who care about people.
Yeah.
And, you know, I am forever grateful and loyal to them until forever because they're amazing.
I appreciate that. We had the same experience with Hale Center Theatre. My wife had started to work for those guys, doing some painting and things like that. She's a set designer, costume designer, and she was going into that realm before she had been diagnosed. And once that had happened, they still supported from a distance. You know, they gave me a job. There's a guy called Rob Kinmont. Shout out to him. You know, they were just there, and they built a comfort zone for us all to be able to work and do that. So it's good to have a place that anchors you and a place where you can be accepted too whilst going through craziness.
Yeah, and there's incredible people there, and they were loving and supporting. And I would get, you know, even just random text messages, you know, on my work phone now and again, and just, hey,
That's
how
amazing.
are you? And it's just amazing people.
So when were you hired on for there?
Back literally around that time in May when I had my first surgery.
So
it was all started. Yeah. So I mean, this amazing company, I think I've been off more and doing everything else than I've worked for them. So, I'm grateful to them for the time they did give me and do that. But I'm a full bore when we're working
You
because
probably never work there. You probably never leave there again, huh?
no.
How's work now for you with those guys? Good?
It's great. No,
Yeah.
it's incredible. I'm dealing with, and that's what I told my medical team. And I said, look, I'm going to be dealing with the ramifications of my therapies for months still. There's the residual, there's recovery, there's a lot of
There's
things
so
that
much.
happen.
Yeah.
And, I still am dealing with that daily, the fatigue, the exhaustion.
Yeah.
But I just said, send me back to work. I have a good friend who works here at the university. And, he was sending me a message one day and said, when you're done with all this, let's just send you on a vacation. I said, no, man, I want to go back to work. I want to go back to being dad. I want to go back to going to practices, to the store. Whatever it is, I want to do all the normal stuff, and I want to do it the best that I can be.
Yeah.
Because that's what matters the most. I want to
love
get
that.
back to being a normal person, and it's not being not special, but I want to be normal. I want to live a normal life. I want to have normal struggles.
Yeah.
I want to do normal things.
And take the holiday, take the vacation when it's your time to take a vacation.
When I choose to take the vacation.
I love that, yeah, because you get forced in those situations. You'd be somewhere beautiful, and you wouldn't be absorbing it because you'd be too fuddled about what's going on around you. So no, I respect that, so much respect. To see the bounce back with that. And the average day-to-day jobs with your work is running smoothly for you, and all good there?
No, going well. Yeah, it's great to be back, to be working, back in the seat full time, to be working. We're very busy. We've got a lot going on, so it's a great place. A lot going on, changing, things that we're growing. It's been an incredible year, so it's great. I'm just excited to be there. There's some of those people you walk into every day, here, there,
Yeah.
anywhere that, oh, I don't like work, or I don't like this. I love my job. I love what I do. I love where I'm at. I love what I'm doing. I love the people I work with. I'm just grateful for all of it, and it makes every day even better.
That's great. And on the psychological side of things, are you seeing a therapist and all that sort of stuff? Have you thought about doing any of that?
I have before. There's been, through a lot of things, there's been times throughout my life that I've done that. I think it's important for all of us, to have people to bounce things off of.
An outlet, yeah.
To have someone that, and in a professional setting, in many instances, that is the way to go and to do it.
Yeah.
Is to go to someone who can help us understand and kind of walk outside ourselves. So yeah, I've talked to people before, I've done it formally, informally. Really good friend who I've spoke with on a number of occasions over these months, that she is a trauma counselor.
Oh, wow.
So she's the type of person that goes into, post a horrible experience in a public place or something happens. And she's talking to a paramedic who is the first responder.
Right.
And I've talked to her, and we've worked through a lot of things. But I think it's important, it's healthy to have those discussions, to go outside of ourselves, to realize, it's the song by Jelly Roll.
Yeah.
I'm not okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to not be okay.
Absolutely, 100%.
We can be okay, and we can get to a point where we can deal with things and it can be better. But it's okay to admit to ourselves and out loud to other people, I'm not okay. And that's healthy. That's what we need to do, because, there might be people in the sound of our voices that aren't okay right now, but find a friend, talk to someone, even if it's not someone professional right now. But if you need to, please go do that.
Big time.
Because seeing someone, or even just telling a confidant or a friend,
Yep.
hey, guess what? I'm not okay today.
That's valid, man. I got a couple of good friends. One of my really dear good friends, John May. He's been there. He's probably been the most consistent person throughout all of my dealings with all of this stuff. And I often, every now and then, when I have enough money to do so, I go up and fall off the face of the earth with him up at his house. You know what I mean? And his beautiful family. So shout out to them. And there's also another person, Sky. They've been absolutely awesome for me as well. So it's good to have that. I also do have a therapist, and I see a therapist regularly. I think it's the best thing for me. Even at times when I feel like my life's fine, there's still things going on. Just recently, I've come under an understanding of ketamine, right? I watched my wife do ketamine when she was going through the thick of everything. And at this one stage, she had a lot of pressure from people around her to go back to the church, right? Oh, you're going to die soon. You need to go back to the church, the celestial kingdom, blah, blah, blah. She chose to leave, and she had her reasons, and I respected that. So she was confused, and she was very, very sad about it because these people were very influential in her world. She didn't know what to do. And then a mutual friend of ours who had a facility for ketamine offered it to her. So she goes there, does the ketamine, does a couple of rounds of it. And on the second round, they upped the dose to a fairly high standard, and she saw visions and all sorts of stuff, right? She talked to people that we've not seen for a long time, and she got a calmness that come out of it, and out of that one visit she did, they literally said to her that that who she was talking with is, we're ready for you, and now is your time. You know what I mean? And from that point onwards, like, she come out of it, it put a pep in her step, it gave her a real hard reset for what she was doing in life. And it just changed her whole outlook. And it went from that to, let's go see some places, let's go see if I can get fixed somewhere else. And we started traveling. You know what I mean? And to see that night and day change with her was pretty unique, pretty amazing. And so going through all my stuff now, I just recently learnt that my doctor, Dr. Luke Swank, he has set up for ketamine, and he's the way how he's got it set up too. It's not as expensive as every other place out there. He's in it for people to get right. Where there's a lot of places popping up everywhere now, and they're in it for some serious cheddar. I mean, everyone that I talked to up to this point, it was between $600 to $1,200. You know what I mean? They're going to squeeze you for it, and it's not covered by no one. Only to discover recently, because I was thinking, this would probably be good. There's things that I'm going through that I need some help, and I don't know what else I can do, because I'm doing a lot of things. So I'm kind of excited. We've now set everything up, and it's looking like it's going to be starting next week for me. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of curious. I'm going to report on that a little bit, and I'm going to touch on that here and there and let people know. But I was just wondering, like, have you thought about things like that? Even, I mean, you're fine and healthy and stuff, but there's a lot of stuff that have you looked into it?
There are. It's interesting with where I'm kind of at in this transitional time from active treatment. I'm just literally a week and a couple of days ago, I completed the radiation therapy.
Wow.
So literally got in a car on last Wednesday, and drove back to Cedar City.
My goodness.
After, 2.5 months of daily radiation.
Mm.
And just getting back. So I know that there's been discussions about some clinical testing with some preventative types of things, the type of the rare cancer I have, and doing some things with tumor management and other parts. And I know there's a number of conversations to have. I'm pretty new into it, so I haven't gone too far down the road into those types of things yet. But, I'm going to look at, and my thing is this, as I described to you when you asked me about my family.
Yeah.
I have a 3-year-old son. And my goal and my intention is this. And, this is conversations that, you talk about religion and faith and things. And,
sure.
These negotiations I've had in my night times.
I prayed it is very David.
And I say, look, whatever this is, however long it gives me, and right now I'm in that in-between time too, because now I begin on the program of I do checkups, and is it still dormant? Is it still instabilized? Is it still not active? Is it not growing? That's where I'm going to be at for a while, right? The holding my breath every 3 months when I go do a brain scan. It's part, you talk about being a cancer survivor. It really depends, because if it's dormant, if it's gone, you ring the bell and there's no more cancer, great. But I still live with cancer, and that's a reality. Is not just in my life. I've gone through this part to actively treat it, and where it now is in a place where they're calling it stable, and it's not growing, it's shrinking. There's some other things they've seen that look good, but it's an active part of my life and will be for a long time to come. So ultimately, you faced a reality with your wife. Is many of us, thank goodness, we don't know what eventually will be the end, what we bring to an end.
Sure.
It's very possible in my life that the tumor in my brain will eventually take my life. That's a real possibility.
Sure.
Because I'm living with this, and if it does come back and things happen, it could be the thing that ultimately ends my natural life. So having that reality that I face and dealing with that, I look at, well, what does time look like? And I look at my son who's 3, and I say, if I can get 20 years,
That'd be amazing.
if I get 20 years
That'd
and
be
can
amazing.
see him be 23,
Yeah.
even though that's not going to be
Oof.
his whole life,
Oof.
but if I can see him get to that point,
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
So for me, it's doing whatever I need to do. It's fighting the good fight. It's doing everything that comes that way to be as long as I can be. And if it's, I've been on, there's a support group I'm a part of. It's the Cordoma Foundation. Amazing organization, deals with a lot of cancer survivors, fighters like myself, who are living with a chordoma, very rare type of cancer.
Yeah.
And we have monthly meetings. We do Zoom, FaceTime meetings, and we get together and we chat, and it's a great group. But there's people in there that I've been living with a chordoma for 30 years. And I look at the hope of these
that's good.
people, and, I'm like, okay,
It's a hope and
there's
prayer.
there's the long end, and I can get there. That's my goal. But there's the reality also of you go to a group and someone's gone.
Yeah.
So, it's balancing that reality and balancing that part of life, which is, there's a lot of uncertainty unknown, but that again goes back to living each day and
Yeah.
living that time. But to answer your question, I'm going to do whatever I need to do and whatever it takes,
Sure.
whether through trials or, other things, to be the best I can and as healthy as I can for as long as I can be,
Yeah.
to be with my family.
If you ever need any help with other things too, there's so many things that I've come to discover and uncover too. So I'm happy to always be there for you,
Awesome.
Ken.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. What you just described then, I had the same thing in my prayers once my wife passed away. It was like, please don't take me away from these boys until they're at least in their 20s. And I call that the passing of the baton, right? So if I can be there, help shape them and not help ruin them any more than what they have been, because it was really tricky there in the beginning. Like, for the first two years of her going was pretty hard, especially my eldest. He watched everything and he was all about his mum, but he's way stronger now and he's on it. You know what I mean? So it's kind of fun. He's building his life better. So I feel like from where he was, where he is now, and where I'm taking them, at least get me to that point. I'll do my best to stick around longer. I mean, I'm eating well and all that sort of stuff. So I'm sure that you understand that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Everything it's going to take. I mean, I'm a gym fanatic. I go. I eat well. I need to be, like I said, I went through some times there where I was very complacent. I wasn't the best person for anyone to be healthy, for myself, for my family, for anyone in any way. And it's like, never go back there. Be healthy, eat well, be the best I can be to be able to run with them, to keep up, to be an active part and participant in their life every single day, so that when that day comes, when that time comes, when they're putting me in the ground, they say, Dad was there.
I love that.
Dad was active.
Yep.
Dad was going 100 miles an hour. Dad was
Yeah.
a part of our life, and it mattered, and
Yeah.
we mattered.
No,
And that's
I love
what I
that,
want it
man.
to be.
I think, and you're very much walking that path right now. I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you being here. This has
No,
been a
I've
great
loved it.
chat.
Thank
It's
you.
this disappeared real fast. So, what makes the difference in anything, whatever comes to mind?
What makes the difference is the attention we give to those things that matter most. So the attention that we give. And when we pay attention to those things, our effort. Because if we're not paying attention to the right things, if we're not bought in and we're not focused on the right things, the effort we're giving is going to be lost and wasted, and we're going to regret it because it's not going to be given to who or where or what it needs to be done to be the best we can be. And ultimately, that comes back to each of us, right? There was that old poem, The Man in the Mirror, that at the end of it all, we only report and we only are accountable to one person. And that's who we look at the mirror every day. So the effort we give and how we give that and what we focus on doing, those things matter the most. Whether it be fighting cancer, whether it be in marriage, in parenthood, in being an employee, in being a student,
Yeah.
in whatever it is, do and be your best. You know, where we are, where thou art, do thy part.
Yeah.
Where we are, what we're doing, keep your feet facing the right direction, moving forward, being better today than I was yesterday,
Yep.
pushing a little bit harder, lifting a little bit more, being able and wanting to accept that extra weight and tension and pressure to be a little bit better of a person. But where is our effort going? And when we put that effort in, are we doing it the way that is not just required, but is something that they need? Whoever that is, a professor, a coach, a friend, a kid, a spouse, you know, a radio show, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Is it our very best? Because if we're not doing that, and I know with time, we can't waste the day. Today is a gift. My oldest son, I have hard days, right?
Sure.
There's a lot, physically, emotionally,
Yeah.
mentally, especially everything going on.
Yeah.
My oldest son the other day sends a message. He said, Dad, God gives us the gift of today, and God does not give us bad gifts. Think about that.
Yeah.
And this came from my son. I'm like, man, okay. I know his mother's done many, many things right. I've done maybe a few, but this is a good kid. He said that to me, and it just brought me to my knees in tears because I'm like, he's an amazing man. And he's gone through a lot, and I love him. But he said that to me, God is not the giver of bad gifts. Every day's a gift. So the effort we put into every day and how we focus that effort to be our best, that's what I would say is my kind of push and the message of it all today is focus your effort on those things that matter most and do your very best. Because if you do that, you're going to live, you're going to love, you're going to laugh, and you won't regret a day of your life.
And you got a chance. Ken Hulse, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here.
Rob,
thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey for you, and thanks for sharing.
Thanks for
everyone
having
out
me. I
there.
appreciate you.
Cheers. We got Johnny Cash.
Thank you. Hopefully that was good.
Man, that was amazing. That was so good. Yeah, I'll do some edits and things, and eventually we'll get more stuff out of it. But